Welcome. This month we're thinking about waiting in the dark in between. Growing up, Easter was always a special season of the year, partly because we often went away as a family and partly because of chocolate. Yet I was also mindful of everything else that Easter was about. When we didn't go away, Good Friday was always marked with appropriate solemnity, and Easter Sunday with joyful celebration. And smack in between was Saturday, an ordinary day with shopping, household chores, and playing in the neighbourhood. Now I'm becoming more aware of what that first Saturday might have been like for those who loved Jesus. They didn't have the assurance of an Easter Sunday as we have had for over 2,000 years. What would it have been like for them? The one they loved, who had been their hope and their future, had just been cruelly executed and placed in a tomb heavily guarded with a massive stone. What do you do when your heart is in anguish, when your hopes and joys have been shattered, and when you don't really know what comes next? We do know that Easter Sunday follows Good Friday, even if we have to wait for a day. Many of us also know what it's like to live between the anguish of death and loss and the not yet seen and barely believable future of hope. As we ponder Easter Saturday, an ordinary day in between two most extraordinary days, we have opportunity to reflect on how we hold the unknown, the darkness, and the pain of loss and death when we don't yet see new life. This is a time of waiting, hoping, of believing this moment is not all there is. Make darkness your canopy around you, the dark rain clouds of the sky. You form the light and create darkness. You bring prosperity and create disaster. You, Lord, do all these things. The Eternal is my shepherd. He cares for me always. He provides me rest in rich green fields beside streams of refreshing water. He soothes my fears. He makes me whole again, steering me off worn, hard paths to roads where truth and righteousness echo His name. My God, I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. As I reflect on this in-between space, the darkness of waiting in the unknown between death and resurrection, my thoughts drift to all that can happen in such spaces of darkness and uncertainty, to all that might be happening when we see nothing and have no sense of what's going on, or even if anything is going on. The caterpillar in the chrysalis springs to mind, slowly turning into an unrecognizable mush before emerging as a vibrant butterfly who flutters her wings and takes flight into places we cannot follow. I think of planting daffodil bulbs in autumn, when other plants seem to be losing leaves and slowing down, so that we can experience a display of beauty and delight in springtime. We don't see what's happening deep in the earth during these weeks and months, but surely some life force is at work to bring forth those spring flowers. There are animals that retreat to dark places in the winter, where they go into a state of hibernation. During this time, their body temperature drops, sometimes almost as low as -3 degrees. Their heart rate slows, and they live off the fat stored in their bodies, in some cases up to 7 months. This is one way for many, particularly smaller animals, to survive adverse winter weather. They may look like they're unconscious or even dead, but amazing physiological changes are happening within their bodies and their brains to keep them alive and to re-energize them as the weather warms up. We think of babies being formed in the womb and broken bones healing and being knit together within the darkness of our bodies. Before modern medical imaging, human eyes could not see this happening, but there was an innate knowing that in the darkness and waiting, something new, something healing was happening, and that in time, it would be revealed. The story of God's people has much to say about both waiting and darkness. There is Jonah's experience in the whale, a dark liminal space that becomes transformative for him and the people of Nineveh. I think of Mary and Martha during the days that Lazarus was in the tomb, knowing that Jesus could have come to prevent his death, but didn't. I imagine their anguish and grief. Then Jesus did come, declared himself to be the resurrection and life, and proved that he was indeed exactly that. What greater transformation could there have been, not only for Lazarus, but also for his sisters? These experiences show us there is far more happening in the dark in-between spaces, the not yet places, than we can ever imagine or plan for. Yet, we are still in the midst of pain and suffering. So how do we hold on? How do we keep going between the anguish and despair of a Good Friday and the new life of Easter Sunday, when we don't know how long the dark in-between will be, and when we can't see what the new life and hope might look like? we can draw some insight from what we read in the gospel stories. We know that Jesus predicted his resurrection, but it seemed beyond comprehension to those who loved him that new life could possibly come from the horrific events leading to his death and burial. To them, it seemed that dead was dead, buried was buried, and there could be no other outcome. So they clung to what they did know and grieved together. And it seems the disciples were together, at least some of them, because Mary ran to find them on Sunday morning, and they returned together to where they'd been staying. The women offered each other comfort as they gathered their spices and planned to go to the tomb as soon as the Sabbath was over. Comfort in sharing their pain together and in holding to rituals and traditions that were meaningful to them. We've all experienced such times of darkness, waiting, and the utter uncertainty of any hope in the future. St. John of the Cross, a Spanish priest and mystic of the late 1500s, known for his writings, describes such experiences as a dark night of the soul. It's the awareness that these in-between times are seasons, and that the journey toward the light and deeper union with God is still happening, even when we can't see the progress. That gives us hope. Every Saturday will eventually usher in a Sunday. Each winter will finally give birth to spring. Being able to hold on to what we do know and seeking wise and compassionate companionship along the way enables us to sit in the darkness and to wait for the dawning of a new day, a new season, and a new hope. Take some time and reflect on when you felt like you were in a season between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. What helped or encouraged you? What do you already know about such times of loss and waiting? Perhaps you're now experiencing being in a dark in-between space where grief overwhelms, and you cannot yet see even glimmers of hope or new life. What do you already know about God and yourself that can help you simply be with what is? What might it be like to surrender to this experience and trust that God indeed holds all things and is holding you? Where might you find wise and compassionate companions to be with you in this uncomfortable space? Give yourself time to be still, to be silent, and to rest in the way you most need to during this season. there any place I can go to avoid your spirit, to be out of your sight? If I climb to the sky, you're there. If I go underground, you're there. If I flew on morning's wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a minute. You're already there, waiting. Christ be with you. Christ before you. Christ behind you. Christ in you. Christ beneath you. Christ above you. Christ on your right. Christ on your left. Christ when you lie down. Christ when you sit down. Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of you. Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of you. Christ in the eye that sees you. Christ in the ear that hears you. May you arise today through a mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through a belief in the threeness, through a confession of the oneness of the Creator of creation. Amen.